The Coaching Habit. Say less, ask more and change the way you lead forever. Author, Michael Bungay Stanier. Introduction. The Leadership Press has endless articles about it. Assorted gurus suggest that coaching is an essential leadership behavior. The number of executive coaches seems to be multiplying according to Moore's law. Even Dilbert mocks coaching, and there's no surer sign of mainstream success than that. Daniel Goleman, the psychologist and journalist who popularized the concept of emotional intelligence, put a stake in the ground more than 15 years ago in his Harvard Business Review article Leadership That Gets Results. He suggested that there are 6 essential leadership styles. Coaching was one of them, and it was shown to have a markedly positive impact on performance, climate, culture, and the bottom line. At the same time, it was the least used leadership style. Why? Goleman wrote, "Many leaders told us they don't have the time in this high pressure economy for the slow and tedious work of teaching people and helping them grow." And remember, this was in the halcyon days of 2000, when email was still a blessing, not a curse. Globalization was just warming up, and we hadn't yet sold our souls to our smartphones. My experience these days, working with busy managers around the world, tells me that things have, if anything, got worse rather than better. We're all stretched more thinly than ever. And while coaching is now a more commonly used term, the actual practice of coaching still doesn't seem to be occurring that often. And when it does, it doesn't seem to work. You've probably already tried and failed. The odds are you've already come across coaching in some form. Research in 2006 from leadership development firm Blessing White suggested that 73% of managers had some form of coaching training. So far so good. However, it seems it wasn't very good coaching training. Only 23% of people being coached, yes, fewer than 1 in 4 thought that the coaching had a significant impact on their performance or job satisfaction. 10% even suggested that the coaching they were getting was having a negative effect. Can you imagine what it would be like going into those meetings? I look forward to being more confused and less motivated after my coaching session with you. So, in summary, you're probably not getting very effective coaching, and you're probably not delivering very effective coaching. My guess is that there are at least 3 reasons why your RST go at developing a coaching habit didn't stick. The RST reason is that the coaching training you got was probably overly theoretical, too complicated, a little boring, and divorced from the reality of your busy work life. One of those training sessions, perhaps, where you caught up on your email backlog. Even if the training was engaging, here's reason number 2: you likely didn't spend much time figuring out how to translate the new insights into action, so you do things differently. When you got back to the OS, the status quo waxed its impressive muscles, got you in a headlock, and soon had you doing things exactly the way you'd done them before. The third reason is that the seemingly simple behavior change of giving a little less advice and asking a few more questions is surprisingly difficult. You've spent years delivering advice and getting promoted and praised for it. You're seen to be adding value, and you've the added bonus of staying in control of the situation. On the other hand, when you're asking questions, you might feel less certain about whether you're being useful. The conversation can feel slower, and you might feel like you've somewhat lost control of the conversation. And indeed you have. That's called empowering. Put like that, it doesn't sound like that good an offer. But it's not that hard. Really. At my company, Box of Crayons, we've trained more than 10,000 busy managers like you in practical coaching skills. Over the years, we've come to hold these truths to be self-evident. Coaching is simple. In fact, this book's 7 essential questions give you most of what you need. You can coach someone in 10 minutes or less. And in today's busy world, you have to be able to coach in 10 minutes or less. Coaching should be a daily, informal act, not an occasional, formal "it's coaching time" event. You can build a coaching habit, but only if you understand and use the proven mechanics of building and embedding new habits. But why bother to change things up? Why would you want to build a coaching habit? Here's why it's worth the effort. The essence of coaching lies in helping others and unlocking their potential. But I'm sure you're already committed to being helpful, and that hasn't led to your coaching more often. So let's look at why coaching others helps you. It lets you work less hard and have more impact. When you build a coaching habit, you can more easily break out of 3 vicious circles that plague our workplaces, creating overdependence, getting overwhelmed and becoming disconnected. Circle #1. Creating overdependence. You may and that you've become part of an overdependent team. There's a double whammy here. First, you've trained your people to become excessively reliant on you, a situation that turns out to be disempowering for them and frustrating for you. And then as an unwelcome bonus, because you've been so successful in creating this dependency that you now have too much work to do, you may also have become a bottleneck in the system. Everyone loses momentum and motivation. The more you help your people, the more they seem to need your help. The more they need your help, the more time you spend helping them. Building a coaching habit will help your team be more self-sufficient by increasing their autonomy and sense of mastery, and by reducing your need to jump in, take over and become the bottleneck. Circle #2. Getting overwhelmed. You may also be overwhelmed by the quantity of work you have. It doesn't matter if you've mastered all the productivity hacks in the world. The faster you dig, the faster the world keeps digging in. As you're pulled in different directions by proliferating priorities, distracted by the relentless ping of email, and hustling from meeting to meeting, you lose focus. The more you lose focus, the more overwhelmed you feel. The more overwhelmed you feel, the more you lose focus. Building a coaching habit will help you regain focus so you and your team can do the work that has real impact, and so you can direct your time, energy, and resources to solving the challenges that make a difference. Circle #3. Becoming disconnected. Finally, you may be disconnected from the work that matters. My previous book Do More Great Work had as its foundation the principle that it's not enough just to get things done. You have to help people do more of the work that has impact and meaning. The more we do work that has no real purpose, the less engaged and motivated we are. The less engaged we are, the less likely we are to find and create great work. Building a coaching habit will help you and your team reconnect to the work that not only has impact, but has meaning as well. Coaching can fuel the courage to step out beyond the comfortable and familiar, can help people learn from their experiences, and can literally and metaphorically increase and help fulfill a person's potential. So you're up against the bind, the grind and the resigned. And building a coaching habit is a way of breaking through to a better way of working. What people think of as the moment of discovery is really the discovery of the question. Jonas Salk. The 7 Essential Questions. At the heart of the book are 7 questions that will break you out of these 3 vicious circles and elevate the way you work. The questions work not only with your direct reports, but also with customers, suppliers, colleagues, bosses, and even, occasionally, and, obviously, with no guarantees owed, spouses and teenage children. These questions have the potential to transform your weekly check-in one-to-ones, your team meetings, your sales meetings, and, particularly important, those non-meeting moments when you just bump into someone between scheduled events. The kickstart question is the way to start any conversation in a way that's both focused and open. The OR question, the best coaching question in the world, works as a self-management tool for you and as a boost for the other 6 questions here. The focus question and the foundation question are about getting to the heart of the challenge, so you've got your attention on what really matters. The lazy question will save you hours, while the strategic question will save hours for those you're working with. And the learning question, which pairs with the kickstart question to make the coaching bookends, will ensure that everyone NDS their interactions with you more useful. Shall we begin? Are you ready to go? I'm sure you're keen to get to the 7 essential questions, but before we go there, we are going to take a short detour into the nitty-gritty of how to change your behavior. There's no point in giving you useful tools unless you can put them into action. The next chapter, on the new habit formula, helps with that. In it you'll learn why the starting place for a new habit isn't the new behavior after all, why 60 seconds matter so much, and how the new habit formula can be your engine for focused behavior change. How to build a habit in which we unpack the real science of how to change your behavior, rather than relying on the myths and lies that you'll find on the internet. The change of behavior at the heart of what this book is about is this: a little more asking people questions and a little less telling people what to do. But simple doesn't mean easy, and theory's no good if you don't know how to put it into practice. So, before we look at what to change, we need to understand how to change. You already know it's hard to change old ways of behaving, however good your intentions. Or is it just me who has sworn not to check email first thing in the morning, and nonetheless found myself in the wee small hours, my face lit by that pale screen glow, intended to find inner peace through the discipline of meditation, yet couldn't find 5 minutes to just sit and breathe, committed to take a proper lunch break, and somehow found myself shaking the crumbs out of my keyboard, evidence of sandwich spillage, or decided to abstain from drinking for a while, and yet had a glass of good Australian Shiraz mysteriously appear in my hand at the end of the day. All that's less surprising when you realize that a Duke University study says that at least 45% of our waking behavior is habitual. Although we'd like to think we are in charge, it turns out that we are not so much controlling how we act with our conscious mind as we are being driven by our subconscious or unconscious mind. It's amazing. Also, it's a little disturbing. There's always been a lot of information out there on how to change the way you behave. Or more accurately, there's a dense jungle of misinformation that grows particularly lush at the turn of each year when resolutions are in the air. Have you heard the one that says that if you do something for 21 days, you'll have a new habit? Someone just made that up, and it now stalks the internet like a zombie, refusing to die. Happily, there has been an increase of groundedings based on neuroscience and behavioral economics that have helped clear a path over the last few years. To build an active new habit, you need the essential components: a reason, a trigger, a macro habit, effective practice, and a plan. Make a vow. Why would you bother doing something as difficult as changing the way you work? You need to get clear on the payoff for changing something as familiar and ancient, not the same, of course, as active, as an old behavior. Getting clear doesn't mean imagining success. Funnily enough, research shows that if you spend too much time imagining the outcome, you're less motivated to actually do the work to get there. Leo Babauta frames a helpful way of connecting to the big picture in his book Zen Habits, Mastering the Art of Change. He talks about making a vow that's connected to serving others. Leo gave up smoking as a commitment to his wife and newborn daughter. So, think less about what your habit can do for you, and more about how this new habit will help a person or people you care about. Figure your trigger. One key insight from reading Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit, is this: if you don't know what triggers the old behavior, you'll never change it, because you'll already be doing it before you know it. The more specific you can be when ending your trigger moment, the more useful a piece of data it is. As an example, at the team meeting becomes more usable when I'm asked to check in at the team meeting, and becomes even more usable when Jenny asks me for feedback on her idea in the team meeting. With that degree of specificity, you have the starting point for building a strong new habit. S it. Be short and specific. If you deem your new habit in an abstract and slightly vague way, you won't get traction. If it takes too long to do, your big brain will end a way to hack your good intentions. BJ Fogg's work at TinyHabits.com suggests that you should deem your new habit as a micro habit that needs to take less than 60 seconds to complete. It's about getting really clear on the RST step or two that might lead to the bigger habit. The S guideline works particularly well for this book, as each one of the 7 essential questions fits that bill. Practice deeply. For his book The Talent Code, Dan Coyle researched why certain parts of the world were talent hotspots for certain skills. Brazil, soccer; Moscow, women's tennis; New York, music; think the Juilliard School. One key factor in each hotspot was knowing how to practice well. Coyle calls it deep practice. The 3 components of deep practice are practicing small chunks of the bigger action. For instance, rather than practice the whole tennis serve, you practice just tossing the ball up. Repetition, repetition, and repetition and repetition. Do it fast, do it slow, do it differently, but keep repeating the action. And finally, being mindful and noticing when it goes well. When it does, celebrate success. You don't have to go buy the bottle of Moet, although you can if you wish. A small fist pump will do just fine. Please give me some good advice in your next letter. I promise not to follow it. Edna Street, Vincent Milley. Plan how to get back on track. When you stumble and everyone stumbles, it's easy to give up. I may as well eat the rest of the cake, seeing as I've now had a slice. In his book Making Habits, Breaking Habits, Jeremy Dean helps us face the reality that we will not achieve perfection in our quest to build the habit. We will miss a moment, miss a day. That's a given. What you need to know is what to do when that happens. Resilience systems build in fail-safes so that when something breaks down, the next step to recover is obvious. Make your habit a resilient system. Hear an interview with Charles Duhigg at the Great Work podcast. Put it all together, the new habit formula. In the box of Crayon's coaching skills workshops, we've increasingly focused on helping participants deem and commit to specific habits rather than to the broad and rarely acted upon action list. To help people do that, we've drawn from some of the insights above and, after testing it out in the real world, created the new habit formula, a simple, straightforward and effective way of articulating and kickstarting the new behavior you want. There are 3 parts to the formula: identifying the trigger, identifying the old habit and ending the new behavior. Here's how it works. Identifying the trigger. When this happens, deem the trigger, the moment when you're at a crossroads and could go down either the well-trod road of the old way of behaving or the Robert Frost path less trodden. If you don't know what this moment is, you're going to continually miss it, and, with that, the opportunity to change your behavior. The more specific you can make it, the better. Charles Duhigg says that there are just V types of triggers: location, time, emotional state, other people, and the immediately preceding action. You can see how you might use a number of them to deem a very specific trigger. For instance, a trigger might be, when I'm feeling frustrated, emotional state, in my weekly meeting, time, with Bob, people, because he says back quote I haven't really thought about it, action. Identifying the old habit, instead of, articulate the old habit, so you know what you're trying to stop doing. Again, the more specific you can make it, the more useful it's going to be. For instance, and to carry on the example above, I ask Bob, back quote have you thought about X, and hope he'll get the suggestion that I've disguised as a pseudo question, all the while thinking bad thoughts about Bob. Defining the new behavior, I will deem the new behavior, one that will take 60 seconds or less to do. We know that the fundamental shift of behavior you're looking to accomplish through this book is to give less advice and show more curiosity. And what's great about the 7 essential questions that you're about to discover is that you can then nightly ask each one in 60 seconds or less. So to finish our example, I will ask Bob, so what ideas do you have now? At the end of each chapter on one of the 7 essential questions, I'm going to ask you to build your own habit based on that question. We'll keep revisiting these concepts and give you some real examples for each question so you can see how the new habit formula and the question work in reality. More if you want to dive deeper into the latest findings about building better habits, download a short ebook, The 7 1/2 Coaching Gurus, at www.thecoachinghabit.com/coachinggurus. I get into some real detail about the latest research from authors such as Charles Duhigg, BJ Fogg, Gretchen Rubin, Dan Coyle, Leo Babauta, Muriel, Jeremy Dean and a mysterious half a guru. A final word on building your coaching habit. This stew is simple, but it's not easy. It's hard to change your behavior, and it takes courage to have a go at doing something differently, and resilience to keep at it when it doesn't work perfectly the RST time, which it won't. It's one of the laws of change that, as soon as you try something new, you'll get resistance from somewhere, asking you, in different strokes style, what you talking about, Willis? To counter that resistance, follow these tips. Start somewhere easy. If you're going to manage someone differently, pick someone who might be up for it and is willing to cut you some slack. Or pick someone with whom it's all going so badly that you've got nothing left to lose. Start small. Don't try to incorporate all the ideas in the book all at once. Start somewhere and try to master one thing and get it in your bones. And after that, move on to something else. Buddy up. Here are the support systems I've got around me to change and embed good behavior: a coach, a mastermind group, which has weekly check-ins and bi-weekly phone calls, another mastermind group, which checks in every 3 months, and 3 habit apps on my iPhone. And I already know this stuff. Get a friend or colleague involved, and be each other's check-in, encouragement, practice, chill at a buddy. Get back on the horse. The habit will slip. It won't always work. You'll feel awkward as you sit in the place of learning known as conscious incompetence, an accurate, if slightly insulting phrase. It's through deliberate and regular practice that you'll move to conscious competence, which is a much more pleasant place to be. One of the laws of change: as soon as you try something new, you'll get resistance. Heed the philosopher. Ovid said, "Nothing is stronger than habit." That's bad news and good news. It's bad news in that your life can easily be a mass of less than ideal responses and reactions that you've grooved into your brain. And it's good news because now that you understand the mechanics of habits, you can build your own structures for success. Winston Churchill said that we shape our buildings and thereafter they shape us. We live within our habits. So, shape the way you want to lead and build the right coaching habits. And these new habits can start with the very first thing you ask someone, which is exactly what the next chapter is about. Watch it work. Watch the short videos at thecoachinghabit.com/videos to deepen your learning and help turn insight into action. How to build rock solid habits, a fun series of videos featuring zombies, monkeys and an egg, all in the service of explaining how to build a rock solid habit. Here an interview with Mad May at the Great Work Podcast. Part 1. Ask one question at a time. Question masterclass lessons appear throughout the book. Keep an eye out for them and apply them to ensure that you use the 7 essential questions to their full effect. My friend Matt May, author of In Pursuit of Elegance and the Laws of Subtraction, tells the story of the time he drove through the center of Paris, swept into the track circle around the landmark Arc de Triomphe. He noticed quickly that this was not your typical rotary. With 12 streets feeding into the roundabout, the normal rules were reversed. Here, the incoming track had right of way, while the track already in the circle had to wait its turn. Even though the system works those crazy French, Matt's experience was one of white-knuckled panic as cars seemed to come at him from all sides. Sometimes being on the receiving end of someone with a pocket full of questions can be like a moment of Parisian driving. Questions come hurling at you left and right. There's no time to answer any of them, and you're left feeling dazed and confused. Some call it drive-by questioning. And rather than feeling like a supportive conversation, it has the unpleasant vibe of an interrogation. Ask one question at a time. Just one question at a time. Here's your new habit. After I've asked a question, adding another question, and then maybe another question, and then another, because after all, they're all good questions, and I'm really curious as to what their answers are. I will ask just one question, and then be quiet while I wait for the answer. Watch it work. Watch the short videos at thecoachinghabit.com/videos to deepen your learning and help turn insight into action. How to ask a great question using a funky webinar style. Michael shares the 5 disciplines required to ask a great question. 1. The kickstart question, in which you discover the power of an opening question that gets the conversation happening fast and deep. Breaking the ice. A good opening line can make all the difference. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Did it hurt when you fell from heaven? One of the reasons managers don't coach more often than they do is that they don't know how to start. There's that nagging sense that if you could just get going, you'd be northeast. But how do you get going? And if you've ever felt stuck in a conversation that seemed a little superficial, or boring, or simply not that useful, then one of these 3 situations might be at play: the small talk tango, the ossified agenda, or the default diagnosis. The small talk tango, make no mistake, there's a place for small talk. It's a way of reconnecting and engaging with a person, of building relationships, of remembering that other people are human, and reminding them that you're human too. And yet you felt that sinking feeling when you realize that you've used up 8 of your 15 allotted minutes talking trivia. Those moments when you think, seriously, do we always need to discuss that? Say, it's cold and snowing in Canada during the winter? Or that sports team, will they ever get any better? Small talk might be a useful way to warm up, but it's rarely the bridge that leads to a conversation that matters. The Aussie Ed agenda. This situation is commonly found in standing meetings. Same time, same people, same place, same agenda. It becomes a dreary recitation of facts and gears, a report that sheds little light and seems to drain energy from the room. The agenda might have been perfect a week a month or a year ago, but now it's putting process in front of what really matters. The default diagnosis: there's no question or conversation about what the issue is. You're sure you know what it is. Or they're sure they know what it is. Or maybe you both think you know what it is. And so bang, you're to the races, pursuing something that, if you're lucky, is approximately ish the real topic. This response is comfortable and feels like progress because you're solving something. But you're in the wrong hole. Digging faster or smarter isn't going to help. The kickstart question: what's on your mind? An almost fail-safe way to start a chat that quickly turns into a real conversation is the question, what's on your mind? It's something of a Goldilocks question, walking a northeast line, so it is neither too open and broad nor too narrow and confining. Because it's open, it invites people to get to the heart of the matter and share what's most important to them. You're not telling them or guiding them. You're showing them the trust and granting them the autonomy to make the choice for themselves. And yet the question is focused too. It's not an invitation to tell you anything or everything. It's encouragement to go right away to what's exciting, what's provoking anxiety, what's all-consuming, what's waking them up at 4 AM, what's got their hearts beating fast. It's a question that says, let's talk about the thing that matters most. It's a question that dissolves OSID agendas, sidesteps small talk, and defeats the default diagnosis. And once you've asked it, you can use a framework I call the 3P model to focus the conversation even further. But before we go on to the 3P model, it's useful to understand the difference between two types of coaching. Coaching for performance versus coaching for development. Some institutions distinguish between coaching for performance and coaching for development. Coaching for performance is about addressing and crossing a specific problem or challenge. It's putting out the re, or building up the re, or banking the re. It's everyday stew, and it's important and necessary. Coaching for development is about turning the focus from the issue to the person dealing with the issue, the person who's managing the re. This conversation is more rare and significantly more powerful. If I ask you to think back to a time when someone coached you in a way that stuck and made a difference, I'll bet that it was a coaching for development conversation. The focus was on calling you forward to learn, improve, and grow, rather than on just getting something sorted out. The 3P model is a straightforward way to create focus, make the conversation more robust, and, when appropriate, shift the focus to the more powerful level that's coaching for development. Deepen focus with the 3Ps. The 3P model is a framework for choosing what to focus on in a coaching conversation, for deciding which aspect of a challenge might be at the heart of a difficulty that the person is working through. A challenge might typically be centered on a project, a person, or a pattern of behavior. Call them forward to learn, improve, and grow, rather than to just get something sorted out. Answers are closed rooms, and questions are open doors that invite us in. Nancy Willard. Projects. A project is the content of the situation, the stew that's being worked on. It's the easiest place to go to, and it will be the most familiar to most of us. We spend our days finding solutions to challenges, and our eyes are almost always on the situation at hand. This realm is where coaching for performance and technical change tends to occur. Often, the art is in knowing how to start here, and then seeing whether the conversation would benefit from including one or both of the other two Ps. People, have you ever thought work would be easy if it weren't for all these annoying people? Surely it's not just me. Certainly, situations are always made more complex when you in all are imperfect, not always rational, messy, biased, hasn't fully obtained enlightenment glory, have to work with others who, surprisingly, are also imperfect, not always rational, messy, biased, and a few steps short of full wisdom and compassion. When you're talking about people, though, you're not really talking about them. You're talking about a relationship, and, specifically, about what your role is in this relationship that might currently be less than ideal. Patterns. Here you're looking at patterns of behavior and ways of working that you'd like to change. This area is most likely where coaching for development conversations will emerge. They are personal and challenging, and they provide a place where people's self-knowledge and potential can grow and flourish. And at the moment, these conversations are not nearly common enough in organizations. It's not always appropriate to be having a conversation with this focus. Often enough, having only a project-focused conversation is exactly the right thing to do. Putting the 3 P's to use. What's on your mind? You ask. The insert name of thing they're working on, they say. So, there are 3 different facets of that we could look at. UOER. The project side, any challenges around the actual content. The people side, any issues with team members / colleagues / other departments / bosses / customers / clients. And patterns, if there's a way that you're getting in your own way and not showing up in the best possible way. Where should we start? It doesn't matter which one they pick, it will be a strong start to the conversation. And when they're done discussing that P, you can just take them to one of the other 2 P's and ask, if this was a thing, what would the challenge here be for you? And you'll likely have a deeper, more robust and richer conversation. Build your new habit here. Write out the moment, the person and perhaps the feelings that are your trigger. The typical trigger for this question is the start of some sort of conversation. Your direct report pops into your roast for some advice. A customer calls you up. Your boss summons you into her roast. A colleague sits down with you at lunch and asks if you have 10 minutes to talk. You have a regular 1-to-1 with someone on your team. You're feeling anxious because the conversation hasn't really got started, even though it's been going for a while. The trigger could even be an email or instant message from someone. Write out the old habit you want to stop doing. Be specific. The old habit could be doing small talk and more small talk, moving straight into advice giving mode, defaulting to the standard agenda, or telling the person what the topic of conversation is. It's likely to be something that's less about curiosity and more about your controlling the direction of the conversation. I will describe your new habit. It's likely to sound a lot like, I will ask them, what's on your mind? If the trigger comes in the form of an email or IM, you're allowed to just send a question in reply. Watch it work. Watch the short videos at thecoachinghabit.com/videos to deepen your learning and help turn insight into action. Starting strong. What's on your mind is a terrific opening question, but it's not the only one. In this video, Michael shares other options for starting your conversations more strongly and more quickly. What's on your mind is the Facebook question. Or at least, it was. And then it wasn't for a while, as it was removed as the prompt. And then, soon after, it was the question again. I'm guessing Mark Zuckerberg and his team figured out that this question was the best they had. So it's a question that's used by tens of millions of people every day to cue reaction and sharing. When we asked Lindsay, our box of crayons researcher, to dig into the science behind why the question works so well, she directed us to one of the fundamental truths that neuroscience has laid bare. We are what we give our attention to. If we are mindful about our focus, so much the better. But if we are unwittingly distracted or preoccupied, we pay a price. A 2010 study started by making the point that any time we have something on our mind, it's literally using up energy. Even though it accounts for only about 2% of your body weight, your brain uses about 20% of your energy. But more than that, what you're holding in your mind will unconsciously influence what you can notice and focus on. When you're thinking of buying a red Mazda, you suddenly start noticing all the red Mazdas on the road. Whatever you're thinking about can also influence the choices you make, so you might not, in fact, make the optimal choice. Asking the kickstart question works as a little pressure release valve and helps make explicit something that might be unduly influencing the way you work. The question releases the challenge from where it may well be rattling around in a slightly unformed and unclear way that is unbeknownst to you, narrowing the way you're seeing the world. If you enjoyed this audiobook and want to hear again, be sure to click that subscribe button and click also the notification bell to switch between getting all notifications, and like and share. Leave your comment and suggestion below. Thanks for watching.